Live.
No.
All right. Welcome to another episode of the ET Show. Let's go home.
Let's go home, everyone. Where are you at today?
Absolutely. Where are you at today? It is on Saturday. We come live on each Saturday, either 9:30, 10-ish, 11, but we're still here.
That's right. That's what counts. Every day you got to show up for your treatment. Every time we're going to show up. It's so important. It's the first rule of success. Show up.
To show up. I am Eric Gonzalez, and this is
Tom.
from the ET Show. Let's go home.
That's how we go.
That's how we go. I am a 8-year patient of dialysis, doing my last treatment option as transplant, and I keep on saying it. I'm still learning about it, so I don't want to go in detail because I don't know a lot about it yet. So once I have a better understanding about it, I'd be happy to talk about it and pass my knowledge on to those who are thinking about going to this route of transplant, because it's a whole different beast. So I'm still learning about it. So if you guys want to learn about dialysis, either PD, manual, the machine, in-center, home hemo, this is actually the reason why Tom and I decided to do this about home hemo, about just getting your freedom back. Even PD, getting your freedom back. Instead of going to the center and dictating your time schedule, what time you're going to be there, waiting time, transportation, just do it at home.
Fighting the weather.
Fighting the weather.
Especially in the wintertime, right? Although It's been pretty mild this year.
And the upside is you with your family, you don't miss nothing. So I keep on telling everybody who's in center, I used to run into, why aren't you trying to go home, And a lot of patients in there had no idea what the home dialysis was, They have a little poster in there that says home dialysis, but when they ask the technicians or the nurses, they don't know too much about it either. So, I'm an advocate about home dialysis. I made people do their research about it, and they came to me and asked me how it is, how to get started. There's nurses in the dialysis center that just do home therapy, but it's a whole different, I say, circuit. You can't do home, you can't do in-center and home therapy at the same time. It's two different entities. So I know people who are in center and they want information. Just tell the nurse there or the technician that I want to speak to the PD nurse or the home hemo nurse. She will come out and explain everything to you.
And so I think the best way is say the home dialysis nurse. Right. And that's if your clinic has a home dialysis nurse. Not every clinic's do these days yet. But it's very important, as Eric mentioned, that you ask for somebody else, because the staff that are working in center may not have the information or the data to inform you about home dialysis and your options. And currently, what I found too, Eric, not to jump into your conversation there, but what I found was that there's a big push for PD and not so much for home hemo. So we want to kind of set that record straight a little bit too, that you can do home hemodialysis. Even if you have a catheter, you can do home hemodialysis. So I just want to chime in there and
I think
put that out there.
I think with people looking home dialysis is the fear of sticking each other, compared to PD. PT is a lot easier than home hemo, as in getting stuck 4 times a week compared to doing it 7 times a week. But the only thing about PD, the large amount of supplies you need. I mean, I've been through it. I did it for many years. Once I gave home hemo a try, it was a lot easier, as in doing my treatment, knowing what to do, the blood work, et cetera, et cetera. You know, and you know, you still have your own supply there, but it's probably a half of the supply that you do in PD. So PD is very granular. You know, 7 days a week, 7 days a week, and it could be up to 13 hours, 15 hours, 16 hours. All depends how your KTB is each month.
A lot of infection control practices have to take place during PD.
Yeah, that's a real big thing.
That's the biggest thing right there.
Right.
And you know, it's a very thorough practice that you have to do. If you're just thinking you can just, you know, connect and disconnect, and you hear that all the time, it's not. You know, it's about controlling your environment and make sure it's clean. There's nobody walking into your room that's, you know, coughing and sneezing while you're doing exchanges or connecting. You know, and like Eric said, you know, you might start out, you know, maybe 9 hours or 8 hours a day, but as time goes on, that membrane thins out. That the membrane is what acts as the filter in the hemodialysis side. So the peritoneum membrane thins out over time, and then you don't meet clearance, which means you're not getting adequate dialysis, and then your time increases. But what a lot of dialysis companies are doing is they're not sharing all that. They're not divulging all that information. It could just be from lack of knowledge, lack of experience. You know, there's a big push for home dialysis now, so a lot of people are just jumping into space, don't really have the education to put it all out there, or maybe they didn't get that piece yet. They're trying to meet the demands of the community, and so they're doing what they can. And what they're not sharing is eventually that peritoneum thins out, and either your time is going to get increased, or you're going to have to add exchanges in the mix as well. And eventually it wears out, and you're going to end up back in the dialysis center doing hemodialysis. So this is, you know, something we like to express and put a spotlight on, because we don't want individuals who think that they're just going to go home and do PD, and you know that's the best thing for them, and which it is. It's a great way to go, especially if you're going to have a transplant set up. If you have somebody willing to donate, you know, that's a great way to go. But if it's something long term, you know, you're going to want to look at doing hemodialysis. Now, you could do hemodialysis in the center, or you do hemodialysis at home. And with all the, you know, germs and stuff that are you know, present in the dialysis clinic, you might want to consider home hemodialysis. Right. And you may be saying, like Eric said, well, you know, I don't have anybody to put needles in me. Well, that's where a company like ourselves comes in, from Primo Healthcare Services. And if you just join us, we welcome you to the ENT show.
Let's go home.
Let's go home. My name is Tom. I'm a dialysis nurse. I've been in dialysis for about 29, 30 years, right around that marker. And I just wanted to let you guys know that we've come to you live on the show to express, you know, Primo Healthcare Services, you know, name and face for kidney failure awareness and kidney exchange. So, you know, that's our goal here, is to provide the education to the community. This is a great way to get the community involved, great way to get the community informed, and we are very transparent on the practices of what has worked best for us.
Right.
So everything here on our show is always about what worked for Eric and I when Eric was doing his home hemodialysis, and my experience as a registered nurse as well. And with that being said, what works for us may not work for you, so always follow your own healthcare professionals. Now, moving beyond that, just wanted to let you guys know, today we have a great episode coming up here involving the medications while you're on dialysis.
Right.
So
medications are so important, so important. Some people even start medications before they even start dialysis.
That's right. And you know, just real quick, I'm going to ask Eric. Now, Eric's been transplanted. So, Eric, how many medications are you on currently right now?
Compared to doing dialysis?
Like a day. One day, how many pills? Or how many pills?
One day, I am taking 19 pills a day.
19 pills a day.
Now this is AM and PM
combined together.
Right.
So in dialysis, though, the dialysis patients usually take about 5 to 6 pills They're generally always given, or medications always given, I should say. We have three main medications during dialysis, and those medications, when we are ready, we'll start the PowerPoint slide for you. But those medications, we will go over them here shortly. But listen, if you guys are interested in having a home dialysis care partner, please reach out to us at info@primohealthcareservices.com, info@primohealthcareservices.com, and we can get somebody out to your house assisting with your dialysis. If you need help putting the needles in, if you need help with the complete dialysis, if you have a loved one that's blind or maybe on a ventilator, we can come out and assist that as well. Or if you have a small building that you're living in or apartment and you don't have enough space for supplies, we are able to hold on to your supplies for you and show up every day and do your dialysis treatment. Now, with that being said, there is a cost to that, and that cost is usually out of pocket. Most insurances don't cover it, although we do have some that do. And so, it's just something about reaching out to us and starting a conversation. Again, info@primohealthcareservices.com, info@primohealthcareservices.com.
Now, what he just said, it's like there's no reason why you actually can't go home,
Yeah, Eric, how was that experience, by the way, when we sent our staff over here? Because it wasn't always myself that was here dialyzing Eric. How was the experience and how was it prior to us showing up here? Can you just compare the two? Was it similar or?
Well, first, when I decided to go home, as you would know, if you guys do decide to go home to do home hemo, the first month, I say 3 to 4 weeks, you would have to go through training through your home hemo nurse in center. And they would tell you step by step what to do. So in my case, my wife and I did the training. We were confident we can do it because, I already had experience in PD. So, I was very confident I can do it. We took the course, we aced it. We got home. And
Eric, we should ask the viewers, put in the chat, how long is a waiting list at your dialysis center? Because we are hearing the waiting lists can be as far out as 6 to 9 months. How long was the waiting list for you, Eric?
For transition
for training.
Yeah. For training, it was since I already had experience in PD. They knew my knowledge. I never got an infection. They knew I followed the rules. So to me, they expedited it. So for training for me, it was only like 2 weeks in center, and my nurse came to my house the 3rd week, and taught my wife how to stick and all that. After that, it was all downhill. Now that was because I had experience already on home therapy already.
Got it.
Other patients who are just coming from center to home hemo, it might be a little longer.
Did you have to wait to get trained?
No. Well, I was a lucky one since I was in center when my membrane failed. I had no other way of having dialysis. I had to go in center.
How many years ago was that?
What, when I was doing PD?
Yeah, when we transitioned from PD to home hemo.
That was probably 3.5 years, 4 years.
So it's probably a little bit before Donald Trump signed an executive order.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Right? Yeah. So for those who don't know, Donald Trump, when he was president, he signed an executive order to have dialysis patients home or transplanted, 80% of them by 2025. So that's why if you're hearing this home dialysis and you're seeing the ads on it a lot more frequent than you ever have before, that's the reason why Donald Trump started this initiative to get dialysis patients home. Now, unfortunately, the target of 80% of the patients of a company has been lowered to about 20 to 25%. I think it's 25% currently. Patients home and dialyzed or transplanted by 2025. So, of course, like we mentioned earlier, the easiest way to do that is to push PD on everybody, because PD you could do by yourself. You don't need a care partner. But that's why we want you guys to be aware and have all the facts and know that PD is not permanent. It's about a 3-year thing, and then there's a lot of risk of infection with that if you're not careful. Otherwise, you're going to end up back in the center. And, but these companies are really pushing PD on you versus home hemo. So it's important to know what home hemo entails. And we've done a lot of videos when Eric was dialyzing here in his house. And later on today, we're also gonna update you on the transformation of his dialysis space at his home. But go ahead, Eric. I want you to finish.
And actually, my PD training was a lot longer than my home hemo training.
Really?
Yeah. I mean,
Because the infection
practices?
practices.
30% of the training was all about infection control. That's my nurse highly educate us on that. I mean, the more scarring that you have on your membrane, the less clearance you're gonna have. So if you a person who gets infections a lot and you get a lot of scarring, your KTB is gonna go down the way. So your only option would be to go inside center. So just remember that the more infections you get, the more scarring you're gonna have on your membrane, and the less clearance you're gonna have.
A question some viewers may have as well. What kind of training, what is involved in the training? Is it like, are you going home with homework and you got something to study? You got to like.
For what, PD?
For PD, let's just stick with PD since we're on that topic. Was it like did you have to like play with some devices or anything? Or did you watch videos? Was it like you got YouTube videos to watch? Or what was it that the home hemo nurse was giving you guys for training? Because you said it was longer than home hemo, and that's 2 weeks. So what is it that they're teaching and showing? What's that look like for somebody?
Myself, I educated myself before I even picked any treatment option. I knew already I wanted to go to PD, so I wasn't into that dire state that I need dialysis right away. So I did my own research, and when my nephrologist asked me to take a tour in the dialysis unit, and the first thing that I went to was the PD section, the home hemo nurse. So, I sat there and talked to her. This is before I even started the dialysis. So I wanted the knowledge. The more knowledge that I had, even though I read about it, it made me feel like I picked the right decision. So I went there for about 2 weeks understanding it. Then once it was in depth, that I needed to start dialysis. Mm-hmm. It was all hands-on experience. They teach you in center how to do manual first. This is me. The manual came first.
So is this a book that they're teaching you with, or is it videos?
It was a book. Everything was all in the book, step by step. Like I said, the first thing that we was taught was how to do manual. Because if you didn't know how to properly do manual, you wouldn't go to the machine. And the reason why, because as I said before, the infection control is so realistic on there. If you can do manual without getting any infections, the machine will be even greater for you. So I was doing manual for about probably 6 months. Now manual is like you an exchange like 4 times per day. So it gets very intense. You gotta be home and do it. You can't just go to your friend's house. You can't go into the garage and start doing it. It has to be a very cleansed area. And anybody in that room that you are doing treatment in there has to take the same kind of protocol that you're taking. It's very time consuming, but I understand because I picked that particular option. And once I learned about it, I know about the infection control. Then I said, let's do the machine. I was confident that I did the manuals. I didn't have no infections on it. The manual training was probably like a month and a half.
So the book that they were teaching out of was that book in a language that like a 7th grader could learn from, or did it seem like there was a lot of medical jargon in there that would have been challenging for some other individuals to understand?
It was, if you didn't know nothing about dialysis, you had to understand it more. So it's not like you could open a book and and know exactly what it was. The whole second part of it compared to infection control is the strength of medications that you're using. The 1.5, 2.5, and so on. Each bag has their own risk. So if you don't treat that bag as in your life's dependent on it, you can really do damage onto your status. Yeah.
So okay, so you're getting trained out of a book, and then at some point you're going to be doing return demonstration,
Right.
right? And then how about videos? Was there videos that you watched as
No.
well?
Nah.
Anything on YouTube or anything on their computer?
The only video that I watched that was on YouTube was myself when I
Went home.
when I went home and I watched people actually hook up. And when they hooked up, I was watching them hook up to the machine. I didn't watch no YouTube videos about PD as in manual. I was just watching how they hooked up on the machine. So like I said, the training on PD is a lot longer than hemo. And then they teach you how to order your supply. Each PD and manual, you have the same amount of supply. No matter if you're doing manual or machine, it's the same amount of supply. So it's very, very intense. So after that, my membrane failed and had no other way of having dialysis. I had to go in the center. So I was the lucky one that they came up to me and said, you will be a good candidate for next stage machine. And I was the only in center for about 2 months. And then I kicked into the home hemo.
Okay.
But like I said, that was just me. I did my education, my research. I did the PD with no flaws. They knew I was a good candidate because the infection control, my blood work was always on point. So they were confident I could do this. So that's how it worked out. And I like the home hemo effect, as in I was with my family a lot. I wasn't doing 7 days a week, with PD 7 days a week, so it drains you out sometimes.
And you had how many hours a day, right?
Well, it went from like 10 hours, and I was all the way up to 14 plus hours. So that right there is half the day.
And you got a 12-foot. It's important to mention this. You got a 12-foot extension on you,
Right.
which means you can't go more than 12 feet from the machine.
Right.
So it's almost a leash and collar kind of deal where you can't go downstairs.
Right.
You can't go make yourself something to eat if you're in your bedroom. For 14 hours.
And it's a very unusual feeling to have the liquid inside that membrane because you always feel like you're suffocating. That's when you first started PD. Your body had to adjust. It was all like a mind thing. You had to get over that hump. So that's how it was. So once I went to home hemo, my wife did it for a while. She had to go back to work, and that's where Primo Healthcare came in. I was with his advocate was
Al.
I started with Al.
Al was here first.
Al was here first. Well,
for about a good year, right?
Yeah, when they came to my house, Tom and Al came together.
How many years did you guys look for somebody to do home dialysis?
It was a good probably year and a half.
Yeah.
Year and a half.
So, and again, that's another reason why we come to you live on this
Right.
Facebook show, the ENT Let's Go Home, and that's to let you guys know that we do have a company that exists out there in the community that provides care partners to individuals who need assistance.
And on top of that, I did find another company. I'm not going to mention their name. They came out. They did their research. They was in center. They got trained, and when she
I remember this one.
and when she went back to her bosses, I guess the director and stuff, they actually said, it's a too high risk. They had no education on home hemo besides that particular nurse, and it ever called out anything, and they didn't have no backup, so they had to ace that. So that's how I found Primo Healthcare.
Yeah, so that, it's important again, with Primo Healthcare Services, we have dialysis nurses, dialysis technicians that have many years of experience. And, what Eric was just explaining was somebody who worked for another agency company that was, a generalized nurse. Maybe she did wounds or something of that nature, a home care nurse. And so that she was brought into the center, she was trained, but there was just too much involved. I think even my understanding was that nurse felt a little overwhelmed with some of the education that she had received with the responsibility that came along with it.
It wasn't actually that nurse. It was that nurse
Company.
It was that when she was going over with her boss about how much in detail about home hemo was about everything in general. This is the first time this company ever dealt with a home hemo patient, and they didn't have the education or the learning about it. So they backed off. So just because you call a company out there and they don't have experience in home hemo, it's a risk.
It's a risk. And even this week, so we had some calls this week for new patients, and one of them actually came from Fresenius. Actually two of them came from Fresenius, referred. A charge nurse referred a patient to us, and another home hemo nurse that we've helped their clients out as well had came from Fresenius and referred. So we got two of them, but it just goes to show, even a company that size, they don't provide a service like this as well. So
right.
It's something very unique and different. So it could be challenging if you are on dialysis and you want to do home hemo, but you don't have a care partner. It could be challenging in your area to find somebody that exists. Again, hopefully you come across this video and you see, and you are educated to know that a company does exist and it can help you. So because we go everywhere, anywhere across the nation, helping patients transition to home. So with that being said, I think it's time we jump into our topic today, which is medications for dialysis patients. And we welcome you to the ENT show. Let's go home. My name is Tom. Been in dialysis for 29 years. I started out stocking dialysis. I was a dialysis orderly. I did both of them for about 6 months for stock, 4 months for the orderly. I became a dialysis technician for 10 years, put myself through school, became an RN, went back to school, got my bachelor's degree, became an entrepreneur, had multiple businesses now, and we're coming to you live today to teach you guys a little bit about medications. Eric, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Myself, 8+ years doing dialysis. I'm on my last phase of treatment, as in transplant. Still learning about it. Still doing my blood work every 2 weeks. The reason why Tom and I decided to do this is to educate more people about home dialysis. A lot of people have no idea what home dialysis is. So when I was in the center for that 2-month period, I just generalized the waiting time. Each patient that went in there, they went in there with a down attitude because they already know the process of it. Mm-hmm. That's one thing I didn't like.
Attitudes.
me picking home therapy way before I even started dialysis, compared to in the center. That's a whole different ball game. The staff were excellent. The nurses were excellent. It was just about how many nurses and techs they had to accompany. What was it, like 4 patients per tech? Is that how it is?
Yeah, some states it's 4, some is 3. New Jersey, it's supposed to be 3. Right. With the COVID, it bumped it back to 4. I see a lot of 4, a lot of under staffing for nurses as well, and that's puts patients at risk, the care at risk. It makes more room for errors. Staffing shortages is a big problem.
So when I was on homes, in center doing dialysis, I always wanted to know everything about the machine. I always ask questions. It's really hard to get a one-on-one conversation with the tech or nurses because they're always busy. You know, I want to know everything about the machine. I want to know the alarms. I want to know about the pulling. I want to know about the blood pressure, everything. Like I said, it's hard to get that education from the nurses or the techs. So once I asked all the questions, you know, they came up to me. You'd be a good candidate for home hemo. So I did home hemo for about 3.5 years. Then I got the call for a transplant. Now, when they call you for a transplant, you can either accept it or you can remain on home hemo. It's only another treatment option. That's all it is. I hear a lot of people thinking about, you know, once they have a transplant, everything's over with, which it's not. If you actually do your research about it, you know, just because you do have a transplant, some transplant only lasts for a year. You know, if it's a living donor or a deceased donor, each of them have their own
Lifespans.
Lifespans of that, and you gotta treat that kidney as a gift, you know. And I know a lot of dialysis patients who are walking around with 4 or 5 kidneys in them because their first kidney transplant didn't work out. So a lot of people don't even want to go through the headache. They want to stay on dialysis. Matter of fact, on our show last week, there was a patient that was on dialysis was 20 years, something like that, for 20 years, you know. So it just shows you, you know, dialysis is a treatment option, just like transplant is a treatment option. She felt more better doing her home hemo, you know.
That's right.
And then doing transplant. And like I always said, before I even start the show, transplant is a whole different beast, you know. You have to understand it, you know. Just because you have a transplant doesn't mean everything's downhill. There's a lot to learn.
And Eric, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they get a hold of you?
So you can get a hold of me as if you want to learn about PD, you want to learn about home hemo, and transplant. I don't want to talk about that yet because I'm still learning. But those effects, you can contact me as a warrior to warrior. You don't want to ask your technicians or your nurses or your doctor. You feel comfortable talking to someone who's been through it. You can contact me, Eric Gonzalez, at Gonzo here, GONZOHERE@Comcast.net. I know a lot of warriors hesitate to ask somebody other than dialysis patients about, you know, their risks, how it is, how you feel about it, how it is going home. I'm kind of nervous about sticking the needles in. If an emergency arises, this is why Tom and I decided to do this, to get the education out there, to get the when I was doing home hemo myself, we were going live when I was on the machine. Mm-hmm. And when the alarms were going off, we were live. This shows you how to correct it, how to maintain your composure. Don't worry. Don't get so stressed out. The more stressed out you get, the more risk you would be becoming of getting low blood pressure and all that. I mean, it's a whole different area from being in center to home, you know. But once you learn about it, if you have a company like Primo who been through it, they have many years experience, and every nurse that I had from Primo Healthcare so far, they all knew about home hemo. They all knew about the risks, you know. So I was very confident I was in good hands. So you want to learn about home hemo by warrior to warrior, just contact me. I do my best to answer all the questions that you have.
If you want to know more about Primo Healthcare Services, just reach out to us at info@primohealthcareservices.com. That's info@primohealthcareservices.com. Eric, I think it's time we start.
And this is the first company that I heard of that, you know, you always talk about space. This is the first company that I heard of that actually, if you don't have the space in your house, they will hold your space at their location. So per treatment, they will bring everything to you that day.
Even take the trash out.
Even take the trash out, you know. So there's no excuse why you can't go home. So on that note, we're going to talk about medications.
Medications. Sharice, are we ready for, let's give it a hand up for Sharice, CEO, co-founder, behind the camera, working on all the magic. So we're going to come out here and we're going to go over the most used medications for dialysis patients, right? And, again, this is information that we're providing here off of our experience. So the top 5 meds given to dialysis patients. You see here, this is the Epogen. Some of you may know this medicine. Another name for it is Procrit. Procrit is what you were probably on before you started dialysis. A lot of cancer patients also use Procrit as well. But Epogen is a erythropoiesis stimulating agent, also known as the ESAs. And there's different ones besides Epogen. There's Aranesp. There's Procrit, which we mentioned. There's Epogen. There's Mircera. And what Epogen does is it helps stimulate red blood cell production. We also have calcium-based binders. We have those are your Foslos, right? The binders. And then we have vitamin D medications. Those are your Zemplar and your Calcitrol. We have iron supplements. Those are your Venifers, your Ferrolicids, and hypertensive agents as well. Okay, we'll go to the next slide.
All these medications are on this list here. I had very good experience on them. I was on all of them.
Yeah, so you see here we got a nice picture of the Aranesp. The previous picture was the Epogen. And again, these are the erythropoiesis stimulating agents, and they stimulate the production of red blood cells in patients with chronic kidney disease and who are on dialysis.
So that means if you do your blood work and your
Hemoglobin.
and your hemoglobin is down, then this is where this comes into play.
That's right. It helps improve energy levels and reduces the need for blood transfusions, which is important. Now, I don't know, and it's a question, Eric, you might be able to answer is, when you were on the transplant list, my understanding from what I was informed was that if you were transplanted, then they take you off the list because now you have mixture of blood besides just your own.
Well,
is that something that you had known about or experienced?
Yeah, every time that you've seen your transplant team before you even get transplanted, the first question they always ask you, did you ever receive any blood transfusions? So once you have a blood transfusion, like you just said, you get a mixture of blood. So that's always a risk of getting a transplant because they have to do some more research about that, about your blood. So anytime you have a blood transfusion and you're on the transplant list, you make sure you contact your transplant coordinator to let them know. But yeah, that's absolutely true.
And then we have something else I wanted to explain about this medicine is, of course, that was actually those medicines are medicines that are checked through the hemoglobin, which we're going to go into in a second. But also, this is something that the normal kidney function does.
Right.
So normal kidney function produces a hormone called erythropoietin, and erythropoietin tells the bone marrow to produce red blood cells. And since when your kidneys don't work, you need something similar to that. And that's where these ESAs come into play. Now, many years ago, there was only Epogen that was around. So up until probably the last 10 years, did we get some other medications like Aranesp and Mircera
I myself, I started out with Epogen. My first dose, and I was allergic to it, so I had to.
A lot of things about Epogen. It's a very expensive medicine. As we are always transparent on the show, it's a money-making medicine for the dialysis companies. And, there was even, times where, and you can, as we like to say on the show, GTS.
What was that shit?
And you can find out there were some lawsuits that occurred because patients were prescribed this medicine and it had no significant improvement, which is pretty much wasting the medicine, but it's a money-making medicine. So a lot of dialysis companies did that to make a huge profit. But there is some side effects if you're taking this medicine where you can have, high blood pressure, you can have, strokes or heart attack from it because of it's producing more red blood cells.
Right.
So just wanted to kind of put that out there. But, as Eric said, if you GTS it,
Google that shit.
you'll see that there's some lawsuits about this medicine being prescribed when it wasn't even, valid to be given. So always watch when you're given that medicine because it is a moneymaker. Some of the things you'll see, we'll talk about just real quick, but the hemoglobins, when you get those hemoglobin tests done, they're doing that because they want to A, check, make sure your hemoglobin's okay, and B, the faster that the sooner they can find out your hemoglobin's dropping, the sooner they can administer this medicine, the sooner they can make more money. So, just kind of know that as, a warrior, as a clinician, if you're ever wondering why we're doing biweekly or weekly hemoglobins, here's your answer. Okay. Our next medication we'll talk about is the calcium-based binders. So, I should put out there too, the Epogen Procrit Macera, just to go back that for 1 second. That medication is given normally while you're in dialysis. We'll either inject it into the machine or if you're doing a home dialysis, it's something that, how would you give that, Eric? Do you remember that one?
I gave that. Well, actually, your staff gave me that, and my wife gave me that. Back of the arm. Back of the arm, as in the injection. Yeah.
So it goes to subcutaneous space, and it gets. Some of them are effective over time. Actually, all of them are effective over time, but the majority is like 2 weeks before it starts, taking effect.
Right.
So of course, if it goes into the vascular system, it's a little bit faster. But my understanding is if it's sub-Q, it's a little bit more efficient. So there you go. All right, so we'll go to the next slide.
That's why your energy level is so important. Once you know that your energy level go down and your blood work shows that your hemoglobin's low.
And if you're feeling cold,
right,
those are all indicators of hemoglobins are dropping. Even check your blood pressure. Your blood pressure could be down as well. And then if you are dropping, then you need to find out why.
Right.
Is it? We'll go into that conversation when we hit the labs. We'll just stick with the medications right now, but we'll go to labs in a few minutes here. Okay, so our calcium-based binders, they control the levels of phosphorus in the blood, which is a common complication of chronic kidney disease and dialysis. Calcium acetate is the Foslo, calcium carbonate are the Tums. Usually the patients are prescribed the Foslo, and the Foslo binds with phosphorus in the stomach and prevents its absorption. And so the best time to take this medicine would be, when did they tell you, Eric?
Well, they told me 2 different things. I did my research on myself, and it was better taking it from me as I was eating it. I took 2 before the meal. I took 2 more during the meal. Then I took 2 more after the meal. So that's how it worked for me. Other people are different, but that's how it worked for me.
That's right. So the idea is to reduce the calcium. I'm sorry, the phosphorus. The phosphorus
in your blood, right.
Inside the blood. So, and it's going to bind with that in the stomach. So that's something to know. So they have different pills. Some of them are really big.
Right.
But Foslos, I think these are the pictures of the Foslos. These are not Foslos here. What are these?
Oh, I don't know what they are.
I think these ones I think are Foslos.
Well, my Foslos
were they round?
No, they were like a circle.
Yeah, circle.
Yeah.
These ones, I forget the name of these ones, but I've seen these ones before too. But it's okay, no worries. It's all the same concept. Let's go on to our next one, Shrees.
They all have the same number that I know of.
Is that, Shrees, is that
It's the generic for calcium acetate.
Okay.
I guess
Okay.
it allows us to trade one if you have a different look.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking of these, because I remember Fazos are blue and white as well. But they also come, like Eric was saying, circular.
Right.
So just kind of know, there's pictures of these on the internet. Again, you can just,
You can Google that shit.
and you'll find out.
And all the medication that we are discussing here, I'm pretty sure every dialysis person knows what we're talking about.
And again, this is geared for those clinicians, those who are about to get into dialysis,
Right.
As well as the patients and patient family members who are going to kidney failure and are wondering, like, what kind of medications am I going to be taking on dialysis? Do I even take medications while on dialysis? What's the normal function of my kidney? Why would I need to take medications such as calcium-based binders or, the ESAs? And as you'll see on our next slide,
And this is
the iron.
This is one of the medications that I always had on me. But eating
You don't know what
out.
you're going to eat.
Exactly. You're eating out, you're eating over your relative's house, you're eating over your mom's house, you always need to take this.
That's right. So, very, very important medication. And we'll go into when we hit the labs, we'll go into a little bit reason why it's important as well. The vitamin D analogs help regulate the levels of calcium and phosphorus in the body and to maintain strong bones. We have calcitrol and paracalcitrol, the Zemplar. Prevents bone disease in patients with chronic kidney disease and dialysis. So it's important to have a supplement for vitamin D because your bones get brittle and fragile. Even when I worked in the prison, as we did our show the other day, we had a patient there, an inmate that was running his mouth, and one of the other inmates, punched him in the face and broke his jawbone. Well, guess what? When you're a dialysis patient, all those bones break very easily.
Right. So,
it's a defense, positioning that the person can say is, hey, I broke his jaw because his jaw is weak because of he's on dialysis, not because I hit him hard. But, you see that little concept there is just that your bones are more fragile, so you need supplements. And of course, the vitamin D supplements such as Zemplar or Calcitrol is what patients are being prescribed. Now, Zemplar is more of an IV medication that used to be given in dialysis centers for many years. And then recently, we have Hectorol, and we also have the Calcitrol, which are the pills. And there's a lot of questions of why is the dialysis unit handing out pills when the patients can just get a prescription and take it at their home. Of course, it's got to be a billing thing. We all know that. It also indicates, it helps show that dialysis is controlling the calcitrol, which is important for your health, with the vitamin D. So those are really two reasons why we're giving pills in the center versus just giving all IV medication. But those are, we mentioned two here, but Hectorol is a third one in there. So let's go ahead and jump into the next slide. And again, we have our antihypertensives, which are, they control your blood pressure, which is a common complication in chronic kidney disease and dialysis. You have your ACE inhibitors, your ARBs, your beta blockers, thiazide diuretics, which relax the blood vessels, which helps lower the blood pressure. So, these are all your blood pressure medications. As you know, we went over that a few weeks ago as well in a real granular detail. But just go a little overview, again, of the top medications that you guys are going to be prescribed if you're going into kidney failure or if you're on dialysis and or if you're a clinician looking to get in dialysis. The whole concept on the clinician side is to show those who are nurses that were looking to get into dialysis, there's not a lot of medications that you really have to know compared to working on the med-surg floors or an ICU and ER and such. There's not a lot of medications that you got to know working in dialysis,
Right.
Which is an advantage because, when you start, getting all these different medications, you got to know all the side effects of all of them as well. So let's go ahead into our Our next slide, Shreese. And as you'll see here, we have the famous Vinifer. So this Vinifer vial that you see in that picture, there's 100 milligrams. They do come in a 50 milligram vial, but you know when you're the usual dosage is about 100. What they'll give you is, I've been seeing it, 200 on home dialysis, and you know, just a little bit about this medicine. You know, it's made to treat anemia, which is a common complication of chronic kidney disease and dialysis. It's ferrous sulfate, ferrous gluconate, and iron dextrin. You know, there used to be a medication called Ferrocet. Ferrocet came in a glass vial. You got to be very careful when you broke that glass vial because it's glass. So now you have to use a filter needle to aspirate and pull up that medicine so you don't get no glass particles inside there, and then give it to, you know, the patient. Now I'll ask Eric, because this is an interesting medication here, something that he gave himself during home hemodialysis. Eric, how did you give iron to yourself?
I myself gave my iron through an iron push, and that was after dialysis. I went through the veins coming in here. This is after I was unhooked. When I was unhooked, I got the
iron.
I got the iron, and this was only given when the nurse said, you know, give it. This wasn't a weekly thing or a monthly thing
Or a daily thing.
or a daily thing. You only give this when the nurse says give it to you. And myself, I always did the iron push. It was
So
it went through a course of 5 minutes.
Yep.
Because you can't rush it in there because you would get a
low blood pressure,
plus a headache. Yeah.
So that there's a lot of side effects that can happen if this medicine's given too fast.
Right.
You know, but before, so when Eric would get this, we would already start returning the blood to him, and he was actually manually pushing this, and like it said, very important, over 5 minutes.
Right.
If not, there's a good chance he'll have side effects. Now, I must say, in my experience, Vinifer works really well. Very little, minimal side effects ever in my patients. But when we used to give Ferrocet, we used to see it all the time. You know, side effects with the Ferrocet medication.
And with my first push, you can taste the licorice flavor of it, and that was just the first push, you know.
Yeah, so it's important that we mention that too, as for the clinicians as well as the warriors out there. So, or warriors that will be coming in here. You know, when we give this medication, and we give other medications like saline, were you able to taste the saline?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what does saline taste like?
They're very bland, salty kind of thing, you know.
Yeah. So where if you notice or not, clinicians, there's the patients can actually taste the medicine that we're giving them, like the saline in the beginning, or saline flushes, or if they have a catheter and you're flushing the saline. I think size has a lot to do with it as well. If the individual is a little bit more small frame, petite, they're more prone to taste the medications. But you know, iron is one that will taste like licorice.
Right.
And then we have another one that we used to give a lot, the Zemplar and the Hectorol, the vitamin Ds. Those ones were more. Do you remember what those tasted like?
What?
The Zemplars or vitamin Ds, or you're probably taking the pill form?
Yeah, I was
right?
taking the pill.
So most patients would say it tastes metallic-y. So it's just kind of want to put that out there and let you guys know that the medicines that you're pushing that are IV, the patients can taste it.
You know, the only time I had that metallic taste in my mouth was before I even started dialysis.
Yeah.
That's an indication that dialysis is near.
Is needed, yeah. So, you know, definitely Vinifer is a medication you're going to see a lot in dialysis.
And this is the box that it comes in. And when you're on home hemo, this whole basket gets delivered to you.
Yeah, so there'll be 10 vials in here, right? So there's 10 vials that will come here. This will be filled.
Right.
And again, this is 5 mLs. This one we don't use a filter needle in because you're not breaking the glass. It's drawn up and just like normal medication would be. Back in the day when we had the Ferroset, because we knew that medicine was prone to giving a reaction, we would actually fill it up in a bag of saline, or we would take a 50 ml syringe and we pull the 5 mLs up and we would dilute it with saline, and then it's given through a pump very slowly throughout the treatment.
Right.
We push this one over 5 minutes. Some companies, they want you to have your iron in the last hour. So, and those dosages are usually about 200 milligrams. This medicine is measured out in milligrams.
Right.
Araness is measured out in micrograms, as well as the calcitrol, I believe, is micrograms as well.
Now, there's 2 ways to administer this. I did the push, and you gave patients this through the machines.
Yeah, so we used to give that through the machine as well. If you're dialyzing in a center, where you're getting that medicine the last 5 minutes. Now, there's some things to know about this medicine if you're getting it in the center or if your clinician is giving it in the center. A lot of times they say, give it right at the end. If you don't give it at the end, that it can cause clotting.
Right.
I never really had that problem. And I'll tell you why. Here's a golden nugget. I know you're taking notes, so please write this down. If you're a clinician and you're giving iron, and there's probably even policy, although a lot of times you guys aren't doing it, it says to give your medicine with 50 cc's of saline. And so what I always did is I gave my iron in the venous chamber, and then I would chase it with saline with 50 mLs. And I was like 99% always guaranteed not to have any clotting in my patient's system when I did it that way. And if I was to do it the other way, where if I just gave the iron early on, then it does have because it's a lot thicker than blood, so it does kind of stagnate through the system, and it can cause clotting over the duration of the treatment. But Eric, he gave his when he was disconnected. We would disconnect him through the arterial, and he would actually give it in the arterial needle over 5 minutes at the end of the treatment, non-diluted,
Right.
Straight up. But we never had an issue with clotting. And when you do home hemodialysis, just something to talk about this here. Home hemodialysis, you actually we're using the Next Stage machine. So just a little history of the company. Next Stage bought a company called Systems. And Systems was known to develop blood tubing, which is part of the extracorporeal system, right? It's called the blood tubing. And that was coated inside there when they make those tubings so that you don't need heparin, so that it prevents it from clotting. And so a little history of Next Stage is Next Stage actually bought Systems, and then they brought that into their product line with their setup that they do. So that's why if you're doing home hemodialysis, beyond all the other advantages that we know about from living longer, taking less blood pressure medications, you don't even take heparin during dialysis, which means less chance of bleeds,
Right.
Less chance of prolonged bleeding. When you're in the center, you're getting that blood tubing doesn't have that in there. So, the natural mechanism of the blood is when it's bleeding out is to clot. So, when you're getting blood pulled out of you, it wants to clot out. It's trying to save your life, right? That's the natural reaction of the body is to clot the blood. So as your blood's being pulled out, it's going through that system. That's why you need heparin in that system, because it's not a Next Stage product. So now everybody should know, and if you don't, it's quite all right. Fresenius bought Next Stage a few years ago, so that finally closed. I think in 2019, 18 or 19, that deal closed out. Maybe it was even 20. But so home hemodialysis, you don't need heparin because they buy out many systems. Now, we're gonna go right into our next slide here. We just had a little glimpse of it there. That's enough about our iron for the time being. I'll take that from Eric. So we have some additional drugs. Electrolyte imbalances, potassium, sodium, calcium, need to be kept at the right level to avoid complications like heart arrhythmias. So you have potassium binders, potassium supplements, and diuretics to control electrolyte imbalances, right? So we have our diuretic, Lasix. Sometimes that's prescribed a little bit before you're in dialysis hardcore. Increased risk of bone disease, calcium metrics, biophosphates, and prescribed to maintain bone health in dialysis patients. It's important to note that the choice of medication doses will vary depending on the individual needs of the patient, which is so true. And always, it's important to consult with a doctor before taking any medication. So don't borrow your neighbor that you sit next to, the warrior you sit next to. Don't be borrowing his medications. That's never a good thing. Always be transparent what you're taking in center or at home. Let them know if you're taking any herbs or spices that are over the counter. That's important because some of those will interact with medications that you're taking. Even some things like grapefruit juice can interact with a lot of medications as well. So make sure you are sharing everything that you're taking with your healthcare professionals, your nurses. If you got a cardiologist changing a medication on you, make sure you let the dialysis know as well. And a lot of these medications we went over, you're going to see them. You're going to see them a lot, and that's the bulk of them in regards to if you're working in dialysis medications. You're going to see. We're not going to see too much of Lasix in center or anything of that nature. Some of these that you may see, the electrolyte imbalance ones, you're going to see in probably the ICU. If you're working in the ICU, or if you are dialyzing in ICU, you'll see some of those medications. Especially if the warriors are coming in with a high potassium, they're going to get some potassium binders. If it's an emergency, you're going to get like a weather emergency where your dialysis center is shut down for a few days. They're going to give you a medication that's going to bind with potassium, because potassium is one of the most deadly electrolytes.
Right.
Yeah. So you'll get medication there, and that one will make you have the runs. But that's how you get rid of the potassium. It'll actually bind with potassium, and it's excreted through the stool. So we'll hit our next one. And so let's talk a little bit about the labs real quick. So you'll see here we have a 6-key lab test. The CBC, complete blood count, it measures the numbers of red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets in the blood. It is used to evaluate the patient's anemia status. So what medication would you take if you have anemia?
For
dialysis?
I would take the iron.
Yep.
I would take the injections, which my injection was the Araness.
That's right.
Everybody takes something differently. And like I said, the reason why there are so many different kind of injections out there, like I said, when I first started taking the shot for the low hemo, I was allergic to that particular shot. So they had to find an alternative, which is the Araness.
That's right. So it's used to evaluate the patient's anemia status and monitor the effectiveness of the ESAs, the erythropoiesis stimulating agents, and that's used to treat the anemia.
And myself, this is myself. I can feel my energy level to go down. So I know my hemoglobin was down. But yeah, sorry.
Absolutely, and again with the low hemoglobins, you're going to see that there's a potential for a bleed. So you might have to get some stool occult cards. And so what you'll have to do is get a sample of your stool, and there'll be a test there where you're going to swab it, and it'll determine if you have some bleeding. Also, bleeding can occur if you have a fistula, like Eric has a a graft.
Right.
He has a bovine graft. And so when you're doing dialysis with needles, sometimes if you have prolonged bleeding, that can lower your hemoglobin.
Right.
Again, it's some things you're gonna notice when your hemoglobin's low is you might be a little short of breath, you might feel colder than normal. And the big one you'll notice is your energy level is down.
Right.
So again, that's when we're gonna treat it with some ESAs.
We have a question there from Evelyn. She asked, how often do you do these labs, like the CBC?
On doing home hemo at home, I did my labs once a month.
Once a month is the standard. Once a month, you'll see these labs. They're given. You do emission labs when you first come to the center, and then you're also going to do it once a month, unless there's something that's happening. If you find yourself weak, tired, feeling cold more than normal.
Right.
If you have a significant blood loss, if you're bleeding prolonged, longer than normal, and maybe you lost a lot of blood, or maybe a needle came dislodged, then they'll order hemoglobin, so you'll see what you'll see if the hemoglobin has dropped at that point. So otherwise, it should be once a month. Some doctors, as I mentioned earlier, may order it weekly, bi-weekly. And, there's two reasons why they're doing that. One is to really look and see if you're really that unstable, or B, they want to get it so that they can order you some of these medicines, because they're very expensive and they make a lot of money when they order it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of those things you kind of have to be aware of, just put spotlight on it. Sometimes doctors are ordering things that you don't really need because it's another way to bang the bank for the services. So you want to make sure it's really needed.
Very good question. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Love that question.
And I, when you're doing home hemo, you only draw labs when the nurse says so, because she has to put it in the computer to inspect their pharmacy. So just because you're feeling low and you think your hemoglobin's down, you can't just draw labs and just send them out. Okay.
Yes, you'll need a prescription for your labs, for sure. Okay, so and some of those labs, like the hemoglobins, there's certain companies I know that are nonprofit. They're actually they have a machine there in center. They can draw that hemoglobin right away in center. I even know of doctors that do house calls still, and they'll bring a hemoglobin machine over. We just had a patient that happened to the other day. They brought the hemoglobin machine over, took a sample of blood, and we're able to run the hemoglobin and see where that patient's at. So, the hemoglobin is a very important lab to maintain, especially when you're on dialysis, because, again, if you're not taking anything to support stimulating red blood cell production, any ESAs, then your hemoglobin will drop naturally on its own. Every 120 days, the cells die. So you have to somehow trigger through the bone marrow needs erythropoietin to stimulate red blood cell production. And since kidneys don't produce that anymore because they're not working, you have to have the supplement to that, which is where your epogen comes in, and your Procrit and your Mircera and your Aranesp.
Right.
Great question. Thank you so much for that. Love that engagement. Okay, so we have our top 6 key lab tests continuing. The blood chemistry test measures levels of electrolytes such as potassium, sodium, and calcium, as well as the levels of the creatinine, urea, and other waste products in the blood. These tests are used to evaluate the patient's electrolyte balance, monitor the patient's kidney function, and assess the effectiveness of dialysis. Again, these labs are done once a month, and to assess the effectiveness of dialysis, that's looking at how well your treatments are, if you're meeting clearance or not. And again, that's both in PD and hemodialysis. And then we have our iron studies, which measure the iron, ferritin, and transferrin saturation. These tests are used to evaluate the patient's iron stores and assess the effectiveness of iron supplements used to treat anemia. Now, I always say the iron helps carry the oxygen in the cells. So that's the little bit of the difference between the ESAs and the iron.
Right.
Remember, the ESAs are your Aranesp, your Procrit, your Epogen, and your Mircera. So I just kind of want to get those names out there, so when your nurse is coming around and giving you medications, and all the clinicians listening, I know we know these patients really well. We see them 3 times a week, but I always still like to let them know, and hopefully you guys are doing the same thing, what medicine I'm giving them.
Absolutely.
Because I'll share the story with you. We had a situation one time where a patient said, "Oh, my doctor stopped the iron," and I'm like, "Oh, well, the order is still here. I have it drawn up in my hand. I'm going to give you your iron." And the patient said, "No, I already, the doctor stopped iron when he was here last." So because I let my ego get in the way, I stopped and I listened to the patient. And I did a follow-up on the last time the doctor was there. And sure enough, he did want it stopped, but the nurse that was working that day didn't take the order off. So the order was still in the system to give it. Now, again, I just point this out because a lot of times in dialysis, we're in such a routine that we're not really cognitively thinking all the time. We might be thinking about our kids, or what we're going to do on the weekend, or what we did in the weekend, or where my next job's going to be, or you might be thinking all kinds of things except for being in the moment in the clinic. And I don't mean this with just clinicians, because there's a Gallup poll out there that says there's a big percent of employees that are disengaged at work. So it happens in healthcare too. So just kind of know when your patients are and the warriors are saying something to you, don't let your ego get in the way. Stop, listen, and just take a minute and follow up and see if it's accurate, because most of the time, they wouldn't say it unless they knew about it. If you really think about it, so.
And there is also called a iron load.
Yeah,
A iron load is where you need dialysis each day for 5 days.
Iron.
Yeah.
Iron, or you said dialysis? So
No,
Iron.
iron load.
Iron load. So each dialysis treatment, you're getting iron.
Iron for 5 days, and that's when your hemoglobin's way low.
So it's boosting your iron levels.
So like Tom said, just because you get the iron that day, that doesn't produce your hemoglobin that day. It takes a while. So that's why you get the iron load. Again, I'm sorry, sir.
Yes, sir. We're going back to the slides here, and we'll see here. So we finished this one. We'll hit the next one. And again, if you guys are here, welcome to the ENT show.
Let's go home.
Let's go home. We appreciate you guys joining us. Boom.
Showing that home hemo can be done at home.
We're coming to you live, letting you know about the medications that are common in dialysis, as well as some of the labs that indicate that you need those medications. That's what we're going over right now. And if you want to know more about what we do, or if you look for a care partner, you can reach out to us at info@primohealthcareservices.com, info@primohealthcareservices.com. Okay, so vitamin D level here. This test is used to evaluate the patient's vitamin D status and assess the effectiveness of vitamin D analogs used to maintain strong bones. And again, like I mentioned, bones in dialysis patients become fragile and brittle. So it's important to continue to take vitamin D. And, those medications are the ones you're going to find that are your Hectorol, your Calcitrol, and your Exemplars. Now, the Calcitrol, you're probably getting that in center. That's the pill that you get. Hectorols are given there as well. And, that was the IV, and then there's Exemplar that's given to you. And now your urinalysis, we're going to talk about that. So you also get a urinalysis, and that tells you your phosphorus and parathyroid hormone. level. And these tests are used to evaluate the patient's phosphorus balance and assess the effectiveness of calcium-based binders used to control high phosphorus levels. So in phosphorus, one of the things you got to look out for is your phosphorus is too high, you're going to become real itchy. And this happens a lot when you're not taking your binders. Those are the blue and white pills that we showed you a little bit ago. Those binders you have to take with your meals. As you heard Eric speak, he took. How'd you take your binders, Eric?
I took 2 before, 2 during, and 2 after.
After meals, he's talking about 2 before his meals, 2 during his meals, and 2 after his meals.
So that's 6 pills per meal.
And one of the things you'll notice there with itching, you also have something else where if your phosphorus is really high and it's high for a long time, the calcium builds up in the small vessels, and one of the spots where you have small vessels is in your eyes. So if you're a clinician or if you're the warrior after listening to this, the warrior is going to have red eyes, and it's something that clinicians should know, and even dietitians sometimes know this, sometimes don't, but you'll see it in the patients because their eyes, the blood vessels are calcifying and their eyes are red. So you'll see that a lot. It's not that they're out there smoking weed, although they probably could be. Most states are getting legal now, and there's a lot of benefits for dialysis patients to do that. However, check the phosphorus if you got red eyes. If not, they probably smoking weed on you. It's all good. We don't discriminate. Now, the other thing is when phosphorus is high, calcium goes low. When calcium's high, phosphorus goes down as well. So they combo each other. You know, they're opposite of each other.
Right.
All right, let's go back into our slides. And we're getting ready to come to the end here, guys. There it is. So that was the most used medications for dialysis patients. So we hope that.
One thing I want to emphasize on is, there's a lot of medication you take during dialysis, so it does make you constipated. So make sure you eat some kind of high fiber.
Oh yeah, you know what? You're right. We didn't talk too much about that, Eric. That's a good point. You might have stool softeners as a dialysis patient. We're removing fluid, so fluid helps you have bowel movement. So if you're not drinking enough or don't have enough fluid, it's going to be harder to remove that bowel. So you will have some stool softeners as well. Very, very good point.
It's very hard to drink enough on dialysis because you got to drink a certain amount. So constipation is a key. You must get the fiber in. Yes, sure.
And Eric, was there any medication there that you think that I probably should have added in there? I mean, it was great that you just brought that up, but was there any other one that I missed that you think was a great value to put out there?
The thing about me, this is only me, my vitamin D changed in the summer because I was always outside, so I was getting most of the vitamin D from the sun. So my vitamin D went down in the summertime, and in wintertime, my vitamin D went up.
That's right.
That's only me.
And that's actually pretty common. And even clinicians too, our vitamin D levels, depending on where you're living at, but if you're not out in the sun in the wintertime, our vitamin D levels start to go down. So we do need to supplement that. And in the summertime, and you know that because you have a better mood.
Mm-hmm.
Your mood's improved. You have more energy when you have an appropriate vitamin D.
Right.
And when you're or in the summertime, that's why you're always happy, energized, because you're outside getting the vitamin D naturally.
Right.
So take care of yourself and, look at your labs, kind of get to know a little bit more about them, get more involved. And, what we went over today was a correlation between your labs and your medications. So, those labs that we went over, and you guys can watch us. Therese, by chance, do we happen to have a handout at all, or?
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Oh, okay, great. So there's a correlation between the labs you take and the medications. So, and what we did is we actually, Therese put something really remarkable together for you guys. So I'll let her go in and explain that. But we thank you for joining us on the ET show. Let's go into any questions and any comments that you guys want us to read here. And Therese, if you can just tell us any special events coming up or anything special you want to share with us?
Yeah,
Because I know
so
you always have great things
Always great.
lined up.
on the screen above, or the one that's up right now, we have the most used medications for dialysis. It's a dialysis drug sheet. So what I have here are the 3 most common ones that we talked about. We did talk about 5, but here's the 3 most common ones. So here's the ESAs, here's the classification, trade names, indications, time and action profile, adverse reactions, because you want to know what happens if something would happen, contraindications, so you know what not to take, assessments, what you would look for as a care partner and as a patient, and patient teachings, what you should know about the medication. And it's the same for the calcium-based binders and the iron, Venifer.
Okay.
Yes.
Great.
So you can find that through the link that I posted in the comments below. So let me just post it again. There's that link right there. It's a dialysis drug sheet, and you can just copy that.
Okay.
Very nice. Very nice.
So that was an in-depth of the medications, 3 of the medications that we talked about, which were the main ones.
Love that. Okay. Any questions or comments, Reese?
Let me see. You pretty much answered the questions from Evelyn. She said you administer all of Venifer in the vial, and is Venifer only administered via IV push, which you kind of touched on.
Since we talked about pills this week, I think next week we should go in detail about. I see a lot of people on Facebook asking, what should I eat during dialysis? If I'm a dialysis patient, what kind of foods should I avoid?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So more nutrition?
More as a nutrition, as looking at the label and see how much phosphorus is in a particular item. What diet remedy that I stuck with during my whole course of dialysis.
Yeah, it's great. And if you guys have something you want us to go a deeper dive in that you have some questions about, please put it in the chat, and we'll definitely look at those as some future topic and content for the ENT show. But again, we always appreciate you showing up to your dialysis treatment and to the ENT show. Let's go home, where we're going to bring you value every time. Every time you show up, we guarantee you're going to get something. You're going to learn something. Where if you're a warrior or a clinician, I'm giving you guys my 30 years of experience here, and Eric's 7 years, 8 years, 8 years of dialysis experience, from manual exchanges, the cycler, in-center, home hemo, to now transplant option. So join us.
All the questions that I had in the center, if there was something like this on Facebook or YouTube or anything like that, it would have been very beneficial to me. That's why we decided to do this, to get the word out. I mean, we go in detail about everything.
So hit the like button, share it, as many people as you can. Ask them to share it. Don't be afraid to ask them to share it, because the community needs to know this information.
Right.
We're giving it to you direct, non-bias, no propaganda thrown at us. With full disclosure, as we mentioned, myself and Therese, we're co-founders of a dialysis company that sends care partners, that teaches dialysis. But we do everything from staffing from healthcare professionals such as dental hygienists to doctors. We do sales, we do marketing. We're Grant Cardone licensees. We have pharmaceutical organizations as well. We do consulting. So there's a lot that we do that we don't really talk a lot about, which maybe in our future episodes we might introduce some other products that we have. But that's our only propaganda you're going to get from us is, that we own the company, and we're here providing content. Again, Prima Healthcare Services is the name and face of kidney failure awareness and kidney exchange, and we want to do more content that you guys are asking for versus what we provide, but we can't do it without your support. So please share, please hit the like. We have a YouTube channel that we're live on, not just Facebook. We're live on, that's Primo Healthcare Services. And, hit the subscribe button there. We need 100 subscribers. I believe there's 2 YouTube videos or YouTube accounts out there. So make sure you get the recent one. There was a little error with the first one. We can't get that handled yet, but just send out the subscribe on the recent videos. You'll see there. Today's show should be in there as well. And if you guys have any questions, please reach out to us, info@primohealthcareservices.com, info@primohealthcareservices.com.
And
Eric?
any questions, warrior to warrior, please contact me. You have anything, any worries about PD, home hemo in the center, about medications with the tape, you contact me. Gonzo here, GONZOHERE@comcast.net. Warrior to warrior.
And one last thing I'll put out there. If you guys are unable to have access to a computer, some individuals don't know how to use a computer that are warriors, right? So you can always pick up the phone and call us. And that number is 609-412-4644. It's 609-412-4644. And we're located out here in New Jersey, but we service across the nation. Maybe Sharice could put that number in the chat or put it across the screen there, which it already is. So please reach out to us and hit the subscribe button, share it. We thank you guys so much for joining us on the ENT show.
Let's go home.
Let's go home. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for
Stay
tuning
great.
in.